Hey, good day. Welcome to Foreigner in the Philippines. Well, rare, isn't it, for me to be making a video during the day? But we now, of course, everybody has more time because of our imprisonment, isn't it? Isn't that the case? Well, yesterday we went and we did a giveaway of rice. We went out, we bought 13 bags of rice, and then we brought it back to the house, and Nana and the family got together, and with a load of plastic bags that we had bought, we double wrapped 5 kilos in a pack, 5 kilos double packed with plastic bags, and we put them together, and we went out and we had a list that was provided for us by the barangay, just one barangay, and we used that to give the majority of what we had to give away. Now, we went to several different places, some of them very isolated, and you have no idea how isolated these places can be. What you have is, you have a stretch of concrete road, usually from the main road, which is the national highway in our particular case, and then that sort of peters out after a fairly short time. It goes past the the barangay hall. It will go past a couple of small government buildings, if you like. And once that has happened, then you're down to a dirt road. Now, there is one particular place that from Burgos, which has now been blessed with quite a long stretch of concrete road, which is really good for them. It goes past the school, goes past the barangay hall, the medical centre, and stuff like that. And it's important, and it's very much appreciated. But once you get to the end of where the budget will take them, then the road just simply stops, and as I say, you're then down to a dirt road. And then after that, you can come across little areas where off to the left or to the right you'll have a short stretch of road, which once again peters out, and then it will be down to a collection of small houses. Now, for most people these will be like huts. They're not, hence the expression a nipa hut. They can be very, very simple houses. Some of them are ancient. They've been there, like Nana's house was there for almost 50 years when we arrived, and was still standing and still doing okay. It had a number of facelifts, but essentially it was still the same. Had only just received power, like months prior to that, and still had no water, so it was primitive. Now, that's more the norm here. So, what was my most dominant conclusion from what I was seeing was that people who are already down to so little, when they get these proclamations from the top, from the government, it actually makes very little difference to their lives at all. Now, for the people, most people who are looking at these videos, our videos, and everybody else's videos, of which there are many expats all doing their own thing and covering a different kind of approach. Our approach is what it is, and they're looking at how ordinary people are going to be impacted by these government proclamations. You've got to stay in, you've got to have social distancing, you've got to wear a mask, and there are all kinds of things. You've got to have alcohol sanitizer, which you keep washing your hands, and you keep sanitizing your hands. You've got to do it on the doorknob. You've got to do all kinds of things. You've got to keep doing like the worktop, where the sink is, where the cooker is, and all of that. None of this has anything to do with the folk who live in the places that we went to yesterday and gave away just a very modest 5 kilos of rice. Such a modest gift, and yet so gratefully received and valued, because that would probably feed an entire family certainly for the rest of the week. So how is the Filipino going to approach all of this pandemic? Well, first of all, you'd have to try to explain what pandemic meant, and the concept of what it would mean would be totally going right over the head. This is just a fact. How do I know that? We went to one particular place and gave away some rice, and that was the site. This was our last call. We went to where we had built house number 42, and we were gratefully received. We were happily received, and that was a particular, not quite really a barangay, but part of the barangay, which is part of the village, a collection of houses, nipa houses, a lot of them, and a lot of them falling down. Well, we did the video about what that visit was about, but essentially the lesson to be learned there, the observation was that everything that's going on in the world right now is really meaningless to those people that live there, and that's because of the level at which they are living. Now, you really need to go to these places in order to see for yourself. And when expats write to me, when women write as well and ask for partners, can we find them a partner, which regrettably we have to say no, because we're not a dating site. We're not set up for that, and in truth we don't have an abundance of expat or foreigner friends. We're living here, and we live right in the community, and we're part of it. So what happens is that people come, and one of the things that was most rewarding about when, way over a year ago, 18 months ago, we used to have quite a lot of visitors. Sometimes we went for a month or 2 months almost without a break. One visitor out and another in. And one of the things that I ventured to say to the people that came was, depending on what kind of a stay you were looking forward to, it could be life-changing or not. Now, we had a couple of young women who came and stayed, and they stayed for, I think it was actually only a couple of days. They thought that they were going to come and stay for a lot longer, but it was too quiet a life. And what we were doing, what we showed them we were doing, was not their bag. It wasn't what they were thinking about. And they took off, and their next port of call was to go to the adventure park that was very close to where we are. So it's by coming around and seeing what for a lot of people, not for everybody, certainly not for those who are staying in Manila or any of the big cities. I mean, there's some terrific big cities. Tagbilaran, a big bustling city with all of the infrastructure that you would expect. You can get everything done that you need to do, from dry cleaning to getting your car repaired, or going to a good hospital. And all of that is available at a town, a city like Tagbilaran. Go to Cebu and it all gets even closer to what Manila is like. And everything is available to you. So it's a different kind of Philippines. The kind of Philippines that we have always tried to show people is where people are subsisting at a level which there's no lower, there's nothing lower than that. It's the lowest rung of the ladder. Now here's, just as an aside, what most foreigners fail to see is that people actually are happy, and that's, in a way, that's the genius of the Filipino poor. The poor Filipino is that they've learned to be happy with what they have, and they don't seek to have a grand way of living. Yes, they're like anybody else anywhere that you go in the world, I think, where they have a lotto. People will go and play the lotto and they'll dream about having 100 million, whatever it is, whether it's rupees or pesos or dollars. Yes, they'll have those dreams as well. But mainly, here, people are actually happy. And I'm always amazed, actually, that visitors here don't get that. They don't get it. They go around and they only see the deprivation. They only see that, well, these people are not living in a grand house, they're living in a very simple house, but they don't actually see that they've got the secret of not seeking to have all of these materialistic possessions, that they don't think in those terms. And when you look at the children are having what amounts to an ideal kind of childhood. I look at the kids that I see here, and I do a retro wish that I had had that kind of childhood. When you see them, and when you see our kids, Telik and Bibi, and not our kids, Lorraine and Dat, these are the regular kids in our lives, and you see them, we go and take a video down at the rice field and catch some catfish or something, and I can pull myself out of the fact that I live here and this is now my life, in order to be able to view it in an objective way. And I look and I think, these kids don't realize, like most kids, they don't realize how good their life is. They don't realize that. The difference, only since Beth and I came back, we brought a measure of good living, a measure of some kind of raise in the way that everybody dresses and the way that we eat. We still eat very modestly, but we eat well. And that was not always the case when we first came, right? And it was not always the case for a little while, because we didn't have all of the money that we would like to have had. We were building a house, which is, let's face it, is an easy way to get rid of any excess of your monthly budget. So, what are we looking at for the people who are at this level, and how they will be impacted, how they are impacted by the instructions that are being handed down. Well, I think in many ways they won't be impacted at all. The businesses will be impacted, and eventually, of course, if food starts to become short, then that's going to impact people. But as far as being able to have the normal supply of materialistic things, like for me, if I'm really looking at doing a project in the house, I'd like to be able to go down and get nuts and bolts or materials. I'd like to have that on tap. The majority of people living in the province, at the very simple level, they don't have those demands. I've seen a man at a building site whose job was to sit and straighten bent nails. Now, you'd have to be someone who actually works with his hands to know what that means. Nobody straightens bent nails unless they got to that point that it's 5:05 and they can't go down to the store and buy nails, and they have to straighten a few in order to finish a job. But no, this is a man that had gone around and picked up every single nail and was in the process now with a hammer of straightening them. It's a totally different mindset. It's totally different. No matter what wears out for, say, Nanai, she never throws anything away. Even used finished paint cans, they use to put a plant in, even though I don't think that old paint does much good for the soil that's in there, but then I'm a city boy. So I think that what's going to happen if this is extended, if the quarantine is extended, then what's going to happen is that gradually people will just get tired of it, they'll get bored with it, and unlike the Western countries where they go, hey, let's get out on the streets and just get this straightened out, and they have a mass demonstration, there may be a little bit of violence, and then it goes into the papers, and then you can see there's a big confrontational aspect. But here in the province, it's really not like that. And out in what we often think of as Angie's village, that was right at the top of the hill where it was a real battle to get up there in order to give away the rice that we did. But we were familiar with that. We built a house up there and put a well in, so we were already familiar with that area, and that was the area that we helped that young girl who had the kidney problem and was peeing blood and was in actually quite a bad state. Well, we got her to hospital, so we were associated with that place, and it was hard to see that they were doing anything different. They weren't able to afford any more or less of the groceries. In fact, probably maybe a little bit more, because at that particular place, the only source of income was making charcoal, which they did, and I think a little farm, maybe working in a rice field, something like that, was available to them as well. But the children still behave the same. Nobody's wearing a mask, nobody's doing this social distancing, not to each other or to us. They were looking at us because we've got masks on and wondering why. And to go from there to doing exactly as they always do, it's going to be a very, very short walk. When it comes to the town of Taliban, when we went in there last, it looked like it was almost back to normal, and we were not stopped at the checkpoint that was right in the town, just right next to the church. We were not stopped. Nobody does it. When I went into Jollibee, and they were doing social distancing there by having a chair that you sat on, and they only allowed so many people to go in at a time. So you sat 4 or 5 feet away from the next person in the next seat, and they had a few things, and they asked me my age when I went in. Of course, I lied. I had my mask on, who's to say, and the man then pointed to the thing. I said, I'm 65. And he looked at the sheet and said, oh, 65 and under, or 65 and older, not allowed. So I said, I just got in, and then walked in. And of course, what's he going to say to me? So, other than that, the bank is open. All of these organizations are trying to do the right thing with masks. You need a mask to get in. You need to use the sanitizer when it's on offer as you go in. And at the bank, they actually did this thing where they put a thing up to your head to see if you've got a temperature, in which case I guess you wouldn't get in. So that's enough from me for right now. It seems like us here in the province are going to continue to feel a little inconvenienced, but unless the numbers suddenly go crazy, which we were promised that they were going to go crazy, weren't we? That it was going to be exponential. That means it's going along like this and then it will go, whoa! Hasn't happened. That's all from me. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Bye for now.